Welcome, beautiful hearts. Thank you for being here. You're about to step into a story of love tested by pain, heartbreak, and hope. A story that will make your heart ache, your soul sigh, and remind you why true love is worth fighting for. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin. Houston's golden evening sun filtered through the sheer curtains of Linda, Patrick's apartment, bathing the room in a warm amber glow. The faint hum of the city, outside blended with soft jazz, playing from the kitchen speaker. On the marble countertop, a vase of fresh lilies filled the air with a sweet, calming scent, Richard's weekly gift to her. Linda smiled as she stirred the sauce on the stove, humming to herself. Her heart fluttered at the thought that, in less than 3 weeks, she'd walk down the aisle toward the man who had completely rewritten her idea of love. Richard Douglas, the man who turned ordinary mornings into poetry. He was late, but she didn't mind. That was Richard, hard-working, often caught in late project meetings, but he always made it up to her with thoughtfulness that melted her heart. As she plated the meal, her signature Cajun shrimp pasta, she heard the familiar click of the front door and the low baritone voice that always made her pulse skip. "Something smells way too good in here to be legal." Linda laughed, turning toward him. Richard stood there, tall and effortlessly handsome, his white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, dark hair slightly messy from the day. His eyes, those soft blue eyes that always found her in a crowd, carried that look again, the one that made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. "You're late," she teased, crossing her arms. He grinned, walking over to kiss her cheek. "I had to make sure the city wouldn't fall apart before I came home to my favorite doctor." Linda chuckled, swatting his arm. "Flattery won't save you tonight. Sit. Dinner's ready." They ate together, their conversation dancing easily between wedding plans and work stories. Linda told him about a little boy she'd treated who insisted on calling her Superwoman. Richard listened, his expression soft, admiration glowing in his eyes. When the meal was over, he reached across the table, brushing his thumb against her knuckles. 6 years, Linda. 6 whole years. And I still can't believe I get to marry you." She smiled, her chest swelling with warmth. "Sometimes I still think I'm dreaming. You've been my peace, Richard, my calm after the storm." He stood, pulling her gently from her seat. "Dance with me," he whispered. The faint rhythm of Norah Jones floated from the speaker as he drew her into his arms. Their bodies swayed, the world fading around them. Linda rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart, the one that had become her favorite sound. "I can't wait to call you my wife," he murmured. "And I can't wait to call you my husband," she replied softly. Outside, the city lights blinked awake one by one, casting a soft glow through the windows. Their laughter filled the room, warm, tender, endless. That night, when they finally settled into bed, Richard traced lazy circles on her arm, his touch gentle, his voice tender. "You know what I love most about us?" he whispered. "What?" she asked, smiling in the dark. "That no matter how crazy the world gets, I can always come home to you." She smiled against his chest, unaware that in a matter of days, those words would echo back to her in the cruelest way imaginable. The next morning, the hospital corridors smelled faintly of antiseptic and freshly brewed coffee. Linda walked briskly toward her office, her stethoscope swinging lightly around her neck. It was a good day, no emergencies, no late-night calls, and she had planned a surprise for Richard, lunch at his construction site downtown. He'd mentioned being buried in work, so she thought she'd bring him his favorite, spicy chicken, wraps and a cup of his beloved black coffee. By noon, the Texas sun was fierce, bouncing off the metal structures and scaffolding that dominated the site. Workers moved in rhythmic coordination, their voices blending into the hum of engines and drills. Linda smiled when she spotted Richard near a half-built column, laughing with his best friend, Tom Weaver. She waved but stopped midway when she saw Richard turn his back, hands on his hips, his tone shifting. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, she just stood frozen, too far to be noticed, yet close enough to hear her world crumble. "Man, you've got everything people dream of. A smart, beautiful woman who actually gets you. You're about to marry your best friend. You'd think that'd be enough, right?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know, Tom. Some mornings, I wake up next to her and it feels like torture. Not because I don't love her, I do. God, I do. But because I don't feel like I deserve her. Every time she smiles at me, I remember what I did, and it kills me inside. I cheated once. It meant nothing, but the guilt, it doesn't go away. The sound of his words sliced through. Linda, like broken glass, cheated. Her mind went blank. Her heart, once full of warmth and light, suddenly felt hollow. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Jesus, Rich. Does she know? No, I could never tell her. I'd rather burn than see her look at me with hate. But some days I think I already live in hell. Linda's vision blurred with tears. The lunch bag fell from her trembling hands, the coffee spilling across the dirt. She turned away quickly, terrified someone would see the devastation on her face. Her heartbeat thundered as she stumbled back to her car, the weight of his confession pressing down on her chest. Inside, she gripped the steering wheel and let out a broken sob. Torture, she whispered to herself. Wasn't I enough? Richard came home late, tired and oblivious to the storm he had unleashed. Babe, he called out, setting down his keys. Silence. The apartment felt eerily still. Then he noticed the dinner table, untouched. His chest tightened as panic set in. Linda? He searched every room, calling her name, but there was no answer. Then his gaze fell on a photo frame near the bed, the two of them laughing by the lake on their 3rd anniversary. He remembered how she had told him, no matter what happens, promise me we'll always be honest with each other. He sank onto the bed, running his fingers through his hair as his throat tightened. Oh God, what did I do? He whispered. Meanwhile, Linda sat alone in her car, parked by the lakeside, the same place they used to visit after long days. The night air was cool, brushing against her tear-streaked cheeks. She stared at the rippling water, memories flooding her mind, their first kiss, the proposal, the laughter, the dreams they'd built together. And now all of it felt like a lie. 6 years, she murmured bitterly. 6 years, and I didn't even know who you were. She leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. In her heart, love still lingered, stubborn and alive, but it was buried under a mountain of betrayal. When her phone buzzed, she didn't look. She knew it was him. The screen lit up with Richard. She silenced it. For the first time since she met him, Linda Patrick decided to walk away from the man who once made her feel invincible. The next morning, she moved out of the apartment without a word. And when Richard returned home later that day, the silence greeted him like a ghost. The bed was empty. Her laughter was gone. The scent of her favorite vanilla candles had faded from the air. Only her ring and the photo of them smiling at the lake remained side by side. He picked them up with trembling hands, tears falling freely. I'm so sorry, Linda, he whispered to the empty room. God, what have I done? The city outside moved on. Traffic, lights, and life, but inside the apartment, a love once filled with laughter had turned into the quiet echo of heartbreak. The small apartment Linda had moved into downtown Houston smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee, a far cry from the warmth of the life she had left behind. Boxes still sat unpacked in the corner, half-forgotten reminders of the home she had shared with Richard. The silence in her apartment was deafening, a constant companion, reminding her of the laughter, warmth, and love that now existed only in memory. She sat at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped tightly around a lukewarm cup of coffee. The city hummed outside her window, car horns, distant sirens, and the murmur of voices drifting in through the cracked window. But inside, everything felt frozen. Linda tried to convince herself that she was doing the right thing, that she was protecting herself from further heartbreak. She replayed Richard's words over and over. Some mornings, I wake up next to her and it feels like torture. Her chest ached with every recollection. She had loved him fiercely, trusted him without question, and now that trust lay in ruins. At the hospital, Linda threw herself into her work, trying to outrun the pain. Her days became longer, filled with rounds, consultations, and endless paperwork. She didn't notice the extra hours or the exhaustion settling into her bones. All she could focus on was the emptiness that Richard had left behind. Her colleagues noticed. Dr. Torres, a kind-hearted surgeon who had known her since residency, approached her one afternoon. Linda, you've been here late every night this week. Are you okay? Linda forced a smile. I'm fine. Just focused. But inside she was anything but fine. Every time she walked past the hospital's glass doors, she imagined Richard waiting outside, hands in pockets, watching her with that hopeful look she once adored. That thought used to warm her heart. Now it left it cold and brittle. Meanwhile, Richard's world had become a grey haze. Work, meetings, and construction sites blurred together. But none of it mattered because she wasn't there. Every attempt to reach her was met with silence. Phone calls unanswered. Texts ignored. Emails left unread. One rainy evening, he drove to the hospital where Linda worked. He parked a few blocks away, watching her leave through the windshield. Her posture was rigid, shoulders squared as if she were holding herself together with sheer willpower. Richard's chest tightened. Seeing her like this, broken and distant, tore at him more than any reprimand from work ever could. He ran toward her, calling her name through the downpour. "Linda, please wait." She didn't stop. She didn't even glance back. The sound of his voice was no longer comforting. It was a painful reminder of what they had lost. That night, Richard sat alone in their old apartment. The walls smelled faintly of her perfume, the soft vanilla and lilies mingling in the air like ghosts of happiness. He picked up the photo frame from the living room shelf, the picture of them by the lake, smiling so effortlessly. Memories flooded him. The night he held her while she cried over a patient she couldn't save. The weekend they spent painting their new apartment together, laughing at each other's clumsy strokes. The time she had waited at his construction site with coffee and his favorite breakfast burrito when he had been stuck late for a month-long project. He hadn't deserved any of it, not then and certainly not now. Guilt clawed at his chest, leaving him breathless. "God, Linda," he whispered to the empty room, "I'm so sorry for everything." Weeks passed. Linda's life became a meticulous routine of hospital shifts, solitary meals, and long nights staring at the ceiling. Her heart, though shattered, remained stubbornly alive. She didn't allow herself to think of Richard, except in brief flashes of pain. But life has a way of forcing confrontation. One afternoon, she was attending to a new patient, Evelyn Whitman, an elderly woman with silver hair and eyes that gleamed with the wisdom of decades. Evelyn had been admitted for a heart condition, but insisted on speaking with Linda personally. "Dr. Patrick," Evelyn said softly, "you seem troubled. Care to share what's on your heart?" Linda hesitated. She rarely shared her personal life at work, especially with patients. But something about Evelyn's gentle gaze coaxed her into speaking. "It's complicated," Linda began. "Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you in ways you never expected." Evelyn nodded knowingly. "Ah, love," she said, "it's a dangerous, beautiful thing. But remember, sweetheart, even the deepest pain doesn't mean the end. Sometimes it's the heart's way of learning, of preparing us for something stronger." Linda found herself whispering the story of Richard's confession, not the details, but the raw wound it left behind. Evelyn listened without interruption, her eyes never leaving Linda's. "You have a choice, dear," Evelyn said finally. "You can let this break you, or let it teach you to forgive, to love more deeply than before. Love isn't flawless, it's fearless." Linda walked away from that encounter with a mind buzzing and a heart unsettled. Evelyn's words echoed relentlessly. Love isn't flawless, it's fearless. A week later, Richard finally cornered her outside the hospital. Rain fell in heavy sheets, soaking them both within moments. "Linda, please." "Just listen," he shouted over the storm. She turned, her face streaked with rain and tears, eyes blazing with anger and hurt. "Listen? You tell me waking up next to me is torture? That I wasn't enough? That I made you feel like a fraud?" Richard's voice trembled with desperation. "I didn't mean it that way. I love you more than anything in this world. Every word I said was out of guilt, regret, and fear. I was scared you'd find out the truth about me and hate me forever. Wasn't I enough, Richard? 6 years of love. Wasn't that enough?" "You were more than enough," he cried. "You've always been enough. I cheated once, early in our relationship, a mistake that shouldn't have defined me. And every day since, I've hated myself for it. Loving you felt like a blessing and a curse at the same time because I didn't deserve you." Linda turned away, her heart torn between the love she still felt and the betrayal she couldn't ignore. She walked into the rain, leaving him standing alone, the weight of his guilt mirrored in the heavy droplets falling around him. Days later, exhaustion from grief, work, and emotional strain hit Linda like a freight train. She collapsed in the hospital lounge, her head resting on the cold floor. When she awoke disoriented, the first face she saw was Richard, eyes swollen from sleepless nights, hands trembling slightly as he held her hand. I can't lose you, Linda. I'll wait. I'll do anything. Please, just don't close the door forever. Linda looked at him, the man she had loved for years, the one who had shattered and yet still held her heart. She wanted to run, to push him away forever, but a small, stubborn part of her remembered the warmth of his arms, the softness in his eyes, and the countless ways he had shown her unconditional love. I'm still hurting, she whispered. Then I'll wait, he said softly, for however long it takes. I'll wait as long as you need me to. Outside the window, rain began to fall, soft and steady, the sound filling the quiet room like a hymn. It was as if the world itself was washing away their pain, a quiet baptism of the soul, a baptism for the love they weren't ready to give up on. Houston mornings were humid but alive, the city buzzing with energy, cars honking, street vendors calling out greetings. But inside the walls of St. Mary's Hospital, a different rhythm existed. Soft footsteps on polished floors, monitors beeping, hushed voices exchanging medical jargon. Linda Patrick moved through the corridors with a practiced grace, her white coat a shield she clung to tightly. The sting of Richard's words, the memory of betrayal, and the emptiness left by his absence still haunted her. Yet life demanded she keep moving forward, even if each step felt like walking on glass. Her morning rounds brought her to room 214, where Evelyn Whitman, the silver-haired woman with eyes that had seen decades of life, waited. Evelyn's presence had become a quiet comfort over the past weeks. Her wisdom, her laughter, her way of seeing life with a perspective that cut through Linda's tangled emotions. "Good morning, Dr. Patrick," Evelyn said, her voice gentle but knowing. "You look heavy today." Linda offered a small, weary smile. "Morning, Evelyn. I guess I am. Long night, long week, and life doesn't seem to pause, does it?" Evelyn reached for her hand. The gesture wasn't patronizing. It was human, tender. "Life never pauses, sweetheart, but sometimes it teaches us in the quietest ways." Linda exhaled slowly, her hands gripping her clipboard tighter than necessary. She looked down, unsure how much of herself she could share. Evelyn smiled knowingly. "You once told me that the people we love the most are often the ones who hurt us in ways we never expect. Maybe that's true, darling, but they can also be the ones who help us heal if we let them. Love is never simple and it's never perfect, but even the most broken hearts can mend, sometimes in the hands of the very ones who wounded them." Linda's chest tightened. How could anyone understand? How could anyone know the torment of hearing Richard's words, the words that had reduced their 6 years of love to guilt and doubt? "Do you believe in second chances?" Linda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn smiled. "Sweetheart, life doesn't offer guarantees, but forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the bravest acts a heart can attempt. Love isn't about perfection. It's about courage. And sometimes courage means opening your heart again, even when it hurts." Linda left Evelyn's room that day, with Evelyn's words echoing relentlessly in her mind. Love isn't about perfection. It's about courage. Days later, Linda found herself walking the path near the park where she and Richard had spent countless evenings. The path wound along a small fountain, water trickling softly into the stone basin. Autumn leaves, golden and red, floated gently to the ground, dancing in the breeze. She paused by the fountain, a habit from before the heartbreak, before the betrayal. Her hands rested on the cool stone edge as she watched the rippling water. The memories pressed down on her, Richard's laughter, the soft brush of his hand against hers, the warmth of his chest against hers as they lay awake sharing dreams. And then she saw him. Richard sat on the park bench, alone, his body slightly hunched, eyes fixed on the fountain. Rain had left tiny droplets on his hair and jacket, giving him a solemn, almost ethereal quality. He hadn't noticed her yet. Her heart clenched. Part of her wanted to turn and run, to leave the past buried in sorrow. Another part, a deeper, more stubborn part, wanted to cross the distance between them, to feel the weight of his love, to see if it could pierce the armor she had built around her heart. She stepped forward, hesitant. "Linda," he said softly, finally looking up, eyes red from sleepless nights. I didn't expect to see you here." Neither did I, she murmured, her voice trembling. But some places hold pieces of us even when we try to forget. He gestured toward the bench. May I? She nodded, allowing him to sit beside her, maintaining a careful distance. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not unpleasant. Finally, Richard spoke, his voice low but earnest. I've tried to make sense of everything. Every day without you feels like a punishment I deserve. I hurt you in ways I don't think I can ever fully fix. But I have to try. Please let me try. Linda's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to throw herself at him, to let him feel the pain he had caused. But she restrained herself, letting tears threaten without falling. Richard, I wanted to hate you, she whispered. I tried. Every day I told myself to walk away, to forget you. But I couldn't. Every time I tried, I remembered the man who stayed with me through everything, who loved me in ways I didn't know were possible. You broke me, but you also healed me countless times. Richard reached for her hand, gently pressing it against his. Then let me heal you one last time, he said, his voice breaking. Let me show you that love can rise from its own ashes. Please. Linda's eyes filled with tears, her resolve wavering. She pressed her head against his chest, letting herself feel the warmth and sincerity she had once trusted completely. I'm still hurting, she whispered. Then I'll wait, he replied softly. I'll wait until it stops. I'll wait for as long as you need me to. The fountain's water glistened under the afternoon sun, the soft trickle blending with the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. In that moment, for the first time in weeks, Linda felt a fragile spark of hope. Over the next few weeks, Richard didn't overwhelm her with words. Instead, he showed his devotion in quiet, consistent ways, delivering her favorite breakfast on early hospital shifts, sitting quietly beside her during late nights at the hospital, not speaking, just being there, remembering the little things, her favorite tea, the type of pen she preferred for charts, even the way she liked her office lamp angled. Linda watched him carefully, noting the difference between empty apologies and genuine effort. Slowly, that spark of hope grew warmer. She realized she had been holding on to fear and pain, but love, real, patient, humble love, had the power to heal what seemed irreparable. One evening, as she prepared to leave the hospital after a particularly long day, Evelyn passed away peacefully. In her room, a small note was left on the bedside table. Linda picked it up, her hands trembling. If love still knocks, open the door, darling. It might not knock twice. Her chest tightened. She thought of Richard, waiting for her in the park, waiting in her heart. That night she went home not with answers, but with clarity. Love, forgiveness, and courage weren't gifts given freely. They were choices, deliberate and brave. The next day, Linda found herself walking toward the park again. The fountain sparkled under the morning sun, and there, as if she had summoned him with her heart, Richard waited. His expression was a mixture of hope and trepidation. I've thought a lot about what Evelyn said, Linda began. About us, about love, and, he asked softly, I want to try, cautiously but honestly. I want to believe in us again. I can't erase the hurt, but maybe we can rebuild. Richard's eyes filled with tears, and he reached for her hands, holding them as if letting go would mean losing her forever. I promise, he whispered. No more hiding. No more secrets. I'll spend the rest of my life earning your trust. Linda leaned against him, feeling the familiar warmth of his embrace, the steady beat of his heart matching hers once more. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to hope, to believe, to love again, cautiously, yet fully. And in that quiet, unassuming moment, two hearts began their slow, careful journey toward redemption. The first hints of dawn broke over Houston, casting a golden glow across the skyline. Linda stirred beneath soft white sheets, her eyes opening to the familiar warmth of a room that felt hers again, yet somehow more magical than ever. Richard was already there, quietly setting a tray of breakfast with freshly brewed coffee and croissants, a mischievous smile tugging at his lips. Morning, sleepyhead, he said. I made sure the first thing you saw today wasn't me nagging you about work. Linda laughed softly, the sound mingling with the soft light streaming through the curtains. Her heart swelled. This wasn't just any morning. It was the first day she felt completely safe, letting herself love again. Fully and without hesitation. You're up early. Planning something, she asked playfully, Always. Come on. There's something waiting for you outside, he said, grinning. Curious, Linda followed him to the balcony. The city sprawled below, bathed in sunlight. But it wasn't the skyline that stole her breath. It was the scene Richard had created. Fairy lights twinkling around a small table, a spread of her favorite breakfast foods, and photographs of the two of them, from every chapter of their love story pinned to strings, like a timeline of memories. Richard, she whispered. He took her hands, warm and steady. I wanted to remind you of everything we've been through. All the laughter, all the tears, and all the moments in between. And I want every single moment ahead of us to be filled with love. Trust and joy, starting now. Tears welled in Linda's eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness, not pain. She leaned into him, their foreheads touching, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath hers. You've made me believe in us again. More than ever, she said. Then let's make this morning the first of many unforgettable days, he said. They shared a quiet, lingering kiss as the city awakened around them. For the first time since the heartbreak, Linda felt completely unreservedly at home in his arms. The past had healed, love had returned, and the future was theirs to create together. In the weeks that followed, their love grew, not in grand gestures, but in quiet, meaningful moments. Richard helped Linda organize a charity fundraiser for the hospital, cheering her on and offering support without overshadowing her. Linda let him cook dinner once in a while, laughing at his clumsy attempts to recreate her Cajun recipes. They spent long evenings talking about their dreams, hopes and fears, and finally without secrets. Their connection deepened, healed by the simple acts of devotion and vulnerability. Every touch, every glance, every word became a thread stitching their hearts together again. One crisp evening, Richard asked Linda to meet him at their favorite spot, the Houston Botanical Garden. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting a soft, romantic glow. The scent of blooming flowers filled the air, mingling with the faint sound of trickling water from a nearby fountain. Linda arrived to find him standing beneath an archway, draped in white roses, his gaze fixed on her with a mixture of awe and reverence. Linda, these past months without you have taught me something I should have known all along, Richard said. Love isn't just about happiness, it's about courage. Courage to face mistakes, courage to be vulnerable, courage to forgive and start again. You are my courage, my heart, my everything. Will you marry me? Tears filled Linda's eyes, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief and joy. Her heart, which had trembled with fear, now overflowed with love. Yes, Richard, she said, her voice breaking. I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect circle of gold symbolizing a love that had endured pain, grown stronger and emerged renewed. They embraced, a long, lingering hug that sealed the promise of forever. Their wedding day was intimate, held in a charming garden surrounded by close family and friends. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine and roses, mingling with the soft hum of a string quartet. Linda walked down the aisle in a gown that shimmered like moonlight, her smile radiant, her eyes bright with emotion. Richard stood at the altar, the same nervous anticipation she had once seen in his eyes, now paired with a quiet confidence, a man who had earned the gift of her trust again. When their hands met, it wasn't just an exchange of vows. It was a reaffirmation of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of love. I promise to love you through every joy, every sorrow, every ordinary day, and every extraordinary moment. You are my heart, Linda, he whispered, and I promise to stand with you, to forgive, to cherish, and to love you even when life isn't perfect. Because with you it's always worth it, she replied. They sealed their vows with a kiss, long and tender, a kiss that held the past, present, and future of their love. As the sun dipped below the Houston skyline, casting a golden glow over the garden, Linda and Richard shared their first dance as husband and wife. Their bodies swayed in perfect rhythm, not just to the music, but to the quiet heartbeat of a love that had been tested and had triumphed. Around them, friends and family smiled, tears glistening in their eyes, knowing they were witnessing a love story that transcended mistakes and pain. We made it, Linda whispered against Richard's chest. We did, he replied, brushing her hair back gently. And we'll keep making it, every day. The night air carried the laughter, the whispered promises, and the quiet magic of a love reborn. It was imperfect, yes, scarred by past mistakes, but in its imperfection, it was beautiful, resilient, and true. Under the stars in each other's arms, Linda and Richard finally understood what they had been searching for all along. Not perfection, but love, fearless, enduring and unbreakable. They had broken, healed, and found each other again, not in perfection, but in love's beautiful imperfection. And that brings us to the end of this beautiful journey. Sometimes forgiveness is the bravest form of love, and sometimes it's what sets two hearts free. Thank you for listening and feeling this story with me. Your presence means more than words can say. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional love stories that stay with you. Vintage Mike Tales.